Do you have an AI culture in your organizations? Many leaders today are like, our AI strategy, we need to bring AI into the business. Oh, we need to sprinkle some AI here. Okay, more AI, please, more AI. Please, can you put a pause, some sauce, AI? But without really thinking about the culture, the people. And the moment people see these tools being deployed, there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of fear, or what does this mean for my career? What does this mean for my job? And no one is talking to employees. No one is talking to the culture to make sure that there's adaptation mentally. This change brings down the anxiety for people. They don't think about that, but you cannot build a successful AI business on top of a fear-based and a rigid culture. If everyone is afraid, no one is going to want to be part of that. And it's easy to invest in technology than to invest in people, right? So organizations sometimes go for what's easy. Let's just buy the tools. How much money does it cost? $1 million? All right, cool, we'll raise the money. We'll find people who will fund that. But what about the people? So AI culture is not a tech initiative. It is a mindset initiative. It is a culture initiative. If the culture aligns with what the organization is trying to achieve, then there will be success. But if AI is on one hand and the people are on the other hand, this gap, if it's not closed, there cannot be success for people. So digital transformation starts with people, not technology. A successful digital enterprise is not a technological enterprise, but a confederation of inspired people that are empowered by technology. I'm happy to be here, and you know, the other day my daughter asked me to play a game with her, and I really did not want to play that game. But she insisted, and I told her I don't know how to play the game, and she showed me how to play the game. She drew these rectangle things and said, okay, if you do this, you do this. If you do this, I win. If you do this, you lose, and all that. Okay, let's do this. And in playing the game, I was making sure that she shouldn't win. Because I know if this girl wins, I will not have peace. So at some point, she looked at me and she was like, Mommy, play to win instead of just focusing on blocking your opponent. And I stood there and I was like, where did that come from? And that has stayed with me ever since. Sometimes wisdom jumps out of kids unexpectedly. She does not even realize how that moment transformed me in her letting me know that I should play to win instead of just blocking the opponent from winning. And because I'm in the AI space a lot, I started thinking about this and linking it to artificial intelligence and businesses. A lot of businesses and leaders are playing defense when it comes to artificial intelligence. They are not looking at building the future, they are looking at protecting what they already have, what they've built so far. And for me, that is a dangerous business or a dangerous strategy. Don't be like me, playing game with your daughter or with your business and just blocking the opponent from winning instead of trying to win. And so with that being said, today we will be looking at leadership in the age of intelligent disruption. Yes, disruption has always happened from when technology was a thing, from the Industrial Revolution. Disruption has always happened, but what we are dealing with right now is intelligent disruption. And I'll be talking about aligning people, culture, skills, innovation, and the mindset that is needed for digital transformation. It's no longer business as usual. Can anyone agree with me on that? It's no longer business as usual. The call to disrupt the status quo has never been more louder. You get up one morning and there is a new app released in the market. Before the end of that week, there is an announcement for more. Before you settle in, it's almost like the ground is consistently shaking. I was talking with someone from Turkey the other day, and they were talking about the constant earthquakes or earth tremors that happen in Turkey. It's like every time you have to brace yourself because the ground starts shaking, you know. So clearly, if we look at what is happening in the world today, the ground feels like it's consistently shaking. When you think you're catching up with ChatGPT, there is a new model that is coming up. When you're thinking you're catching up with 3.0, then there's 4.0. I listened to Sam Altman the other day, and he's talking about GPT-5 coming up By the end of this year, like, okay, we are very close to AGI, but that's a story for another day. So for many leaders and people in general, the landscape feels really overwhelming. And by the end of this talk, I hope that many of you in the room can feel less overwhelmed and feel less confused by artificial intelligence or by the change that is happening in the world in general. And when we talk about disruption, it's about shaking things up, right? This intelligent disruption is shaking everything up. It's challenging the norm. It's the change that is happening is at a speed that we have never seen before. And so I just wanted to compare briefly past disruptions versus intelligent disruption that is happening in our world today. And past disruption was driven by breakthroughs like electricity, internet, mobile phones, and all of these things. Major shifts, but still, these were very linear and relatively very predictable. Linear in the sense that it took years for adoption to happen in the marketplace. But in this age and time, a new app comes into the market and you hear of 100,000 adoptions in a few days or even in a few hours. So that is how fast things are changing now. Back then, in the age of normal disruption, businesses had enough time to adapt. Because if it took this amount of years for cell phones to be adopted, businesses had enough time to make sure, okay, how do we adapt for the cell phone era? But today, things are changing so fast that businesses don't have time to adapt. And intelligent disruption is exponential. In fact, when we really look at what is happening, it's beyond exponential. These are quantum leaps we're talking about. It's self-evolving, often unpredictable, challenging traditional business models. So if you are still basing your mindset or your business on tradition, you will not survive what is already here and what is coming. And so here are some key traits of intelligent disruption. They're being driven by AI and algorithm. They're faster than human planning. I heard a lot today about 5-year planning into 2030, and I was like, I hope those plans are agile enough. So what is happening with intelligent disruption is that it is way faster than human planning and is capable of self-improving. We think of agentic systems. These are systems that can improve by themselves. And so it's redefining everything, redefining customer experience. What then do you do as a business? Do you continue to play by the traditional playbook? No. A traditional playbook no longer applies. And the traditional playbook refers to a set of established rules and strategies that organizations and leaders have practiced for so long. But that is crumbling under the weight of artificial intelligence. It is based on what worked in the past. But one thing we need to know now is that what worked in the past is not going to work in this age and time. What brought you here as a business, as a leader, there's no guarantee that what brought you here is going to take you into the future. Things like long-term planning, your 5-year plan, AI is challenging all of that. Job security through specialization and all of that, AI is disrupting all of these traditional playbook and models that we know about. And so in business and in leadership, a traditional playbook includes linear career paths and rigid job roles. Because what we are seeing as things are changing into the future, all of these things that are so rigid, even job titles and job roles, everything is going to merge, it's merging. And so if you are of the mindset that, no, my career is this or my job description is this, you may find yourself wanting in this age and time. Centralized decisions, is it just one person in your organization that has to make a decision? And if their phone does not go through everything, we stand on a standstill till that person come along? These are traditional models. These are a traditional playbook. So if things are still centralized, if technology is a support function instead of your core strategic driver, you are setting yourself up for failure as a leader or as a business. So because the game has changed, and when the game changes, the playbook needs to change. The traditional playbook assumes that the world will stay the same. But we are no longer seeing that happening. The world is changing so fast. A traditional playbook no longer works because, again, change is exponential. Agility, adaptability, innovation, these are the things that organizations need to embrace to make sure that we stay relevant. And leaders need to think beyond tradition because we are leading in a world where change is no longer linear. Leaders don't have to just understand technology. They need to understand the impact on the people, the impact on the culture, and the impact on their core mission and purpose. How does this impact them? As a leader, yes, you need to understand what technology entails and all of that, but how does it impact your people? Because if organizations go in tech first without really thinking and considering the people, any of the digital transformation strategy, you'll find that it will fail because, again, the people are left behind. And so, whether by circumstances or by deliberate choice, your life will be disrupted. And I say this based on my own story. I'll tell you a brief story about myself before we carry on. I used to work in corporate, and one day I went to work and my boss called me in for what I thought was a meeting for me to bring him up to speed with what has been happening. And when I walked into that meeting, because of time factor, I will not have time to tell us the full story, but for those who want to get more into it, I did a TED talk on this, so it's on YouTube. But however, when I walked into my boss's office that morning, and the look on his face, when someone looks at you and you're like, something is wrong. I'm like, okay, what did I do? And the smile on my face quickly faded. And I stood there by the door waiting for him to say the next thing, and he just sat there looking at me. All of these happened like maybe 30 seconds or so, but it felt like eternity because I could see and felt that something was wrong. He asked me to sit down, and I sat down, and I could feel my heart wanting to pant out of my chest. So he looked at me, and he said, there has been some restructuring happening, and they have been thinking what better way to tell me, but there's no better way to tell me than to let me know my position is no longer needed. I was like, what? When I woke up this morning, this was not the plan I had for my day. Those words hit me like a truck on high speed because I did not see retrenchment coming. My boss used to tell me plans 5 years ahead of time. Again, we're back to the 5-year plan, right? We would do this, we would do this, we would do this, and one morning, it was all gone. And to say that day and the weeks and the months, even the years that followed, were some of the most difficult time of my life would be an understatement. Because I had no plan B, and plan B didn't have me either. I was like, I have a job. I signed a permanent contract of employment, and in one moment, it was gone. But when that happened, it threw me into the deep end. When you buy a car, you start seeing that particular mark of car everywhere. For me, it was now because I've been retrenched, news about retrenchment would jump on me. I was like, oh, so I wasn't the only one who was retrenched. And I started asking the questions, okay, if this many people are being laid off by organizations, how do organizations continue to thrive when they let go so many people? And I remember vividly typing that question on Google. Thank God for Google. I wanted to know how my boss was coping without me. I typed that question. How do organizations continue to thrive when they let go so many people? And for the first time, I came across concepts like automation, artificial intelligence, and robotics. These were things that I was not paying attention to. Mind you, look, it blew my mind. I was like, there's a whole world out here that I didn't even know existed. Prior to me being laid off, the only technology I knew was to work on my computer, send emails, answer phone calls. There was nothing beyond that. And I'm on the internet, and I'm seeing concepts around artificial intelligence, and it took me, I was like, there is intelligence called artificial? This was in 2016, by the way. Look, that's how clueless I was. I was beyond clueless. But it's interesting. I am so interested now in this thing. Also, it was a way for me to get over the heartbreak of losing my job, right? I'm jobless. I have enough time in my hands. I need to fill that vacuum with something. So I'm reading on these things. I'm being fascinated by this whole world of artificial intelligence. And at some point, I started writing about it on social media, not thinking anything would come of it. And people became intrigued and would ask me questions as though I was the expert. And I would laugh and be like, if one day you knew. I'm as clueless as you are, right? But because they're asking these questions and I'm being fascinated by everything everyone is asking, I go back online and I dug myself more and more into that rabbit hole that I started. So the more I researched and wrote about it, the more interested it became for me. And at one point I thought, someone should write a book about this. But in a million years, I didn't think that someone would be me. Because I used to think, you need to be really smart to write a book, right? And I'm like, no way, I cannot write a book. And when an idea has taken hold of you, if you don't give in to that idea, it sort of makes you miserable. The idea to write a book will not leave me. And at some point, I went to a friend. I was like, hey, do you think I can write a book? Like, of course, you can do anything you want. You're such a smart woman. I'm like, but I don't have a degree. Like, what has a book got to do with a degree? Just write what you are finding out there. And so it evolved from those social media posts and blog articles because I started my website back then, and evolved from social media posts to articles and to a book. And I thought, what better title than Disrupt Yourself or Be Disrupted? Because here I was minding my business, and my boss disrupted my life, just like that. So I thought, if I can bring these conversations to the forefront, perhaps many people can be better prepared than I was for disruption. Many people can ask uncomfortable questions that I did not ask myself. And perhaps if you can face these uncomfortable questions, now you can do something about minimizing the disruption that you will face, because again, there's no neutral ground. There's no one who will be left untouched by artificial intelligence. So I don't want to promise you that if you can ask these questions, then you are free from AI. No. We are all going to face the consequences, so to say, of artificial intelligence, as well as the potential of artificial intelligence. We had a panel conversation at a conference at Santon Convention Center just 2 days ago. And there was a question around job loss and all of these things. And somebody answered and was promising, like, no, AI will take away jobs, but it will also produce more jobs. And in my opinion, I was like, I don't think it's that much of a straight line, right? We are going to, of course, embrace the benefits of artificial intelligence, but we cannot also escape the consequences. Let's not kid ourselves that we are going to fully escape the consequences of this technology that is disrupting everything, but I digress. So the questions I wanted people to think and ask themselves, will I still be relevant in the next 3 to 5 years? These are uncomfortable questions. Perhaps if I'd asked, I would have been better prepared. How is technology changing my industry? How is technology changing my profession? How can I leverage new technologies to remain relevant? What skills do I need to develop so that I can complement artificial intelligence or enhance my value in the workplace? People are not asking these questions. They're sort of watching it from the fence, and that's not a good strategy. How can I use AI to solve existing problems or create new solutions in my field? What opportunities does AI present for innovation? Many people are scared to ask these questions, and if you're a parent in the house, how do I raise my kids differently to prepare them for the future? Wrong questions to ask, and a lot of people are asking these wrong questions. But when you ask, will AI steal my job? The answer is yes. In so many ways, AI is already doing part of your job. Will AI take over everything? The answer is yes. And then, so when you ask these type of questions, it doesn't help you. How can I stop technological advancement? Well, good luck. Try. You can try. It's like trying to stop water. Has anyone ever tried to stop a river or water? You know, water is like the tap, you can turn it off, but has anyone ever tried to stop a river? You can't. That is, if you're attempting to stop the progress of technology, you're essentially trying to stop human progress. Will AI make people dumber over time? We all know the answer to that. Right? So these are questions that fosters a sense of doom rather than exploring how AI can help you become better. These questions reinforce fear, not forward thinking, and they position you as a passive victim of technology. And that's a terrible place to be. You and I, we don't want to be a passive victim of technology. Anyone here wants to be a victim of technology? I know that there are people that love victimhood. But if you try it with technology, you essentially become irrelevant. So some of the trends that are happening in the world today is that tech is in every sector. All right, there's no specific sector that you can say, oh, this is now a tech sector. Of course, we still know of our big tech guys, your Google, your Meta, your Apple, but technology is everywhere. And so every CEO today is a tech CEO, whether they are aware of it or not. Every leader is a tech leader, whether they are aware of it or not. And everybody is now a tech person. Every company is a tech company today. These are the trends that are happening. Every industry is now being infiltrated by technology, and I will get into details at some point in the presentation, but that is what is happening. And so, what is your perception of artificial intelligence? What comes to mind when you hear these words, AI? Anybody can answer. Or if I lock eyes with you, I'll just point you. What comes to mind when you hear the word artificial intelligence? Anybody can answer. Should I pick? Change. That's a good one. Yeah, what else? Innovation. Great. What else? Speed. In unison. That was good. What else? Convenience. Great. That's good. You're winning so far. This side. Hello? Hello? Yeah? Liberation. Good. Disruption. Yeah, that's my word, by the way. When my daughter hears the word disruption, she's like, Mommy. I say, hey, that's not my last name, okay? Yeah, disruption. Anything else? Efficiency. Discovery. Great. At the back there, are we still during lunch? Are we still on lunch? Vast knowledge. That's a good one. Anything else? This corner? Did you have coffee this morning? Creativity. That's a good one. Okay, great. Anyone else? All right. Singularity. Okay, there's Mac in the house. He's going to talk on that. So, great answers, by the way, but there was something specific I was looking for, because there are a lot of people, when they hear about AI, they're like, who's the enemy? Oh my God, it's going to make us lazy. It's going to make people this, that, like from the negative perspective, right? And I wanted to emphasize on that because your perception of AI impacts your relationship with AI. How you think about AI impacts how you relate with AI. If you see AI as the enemy, if you see me as an enemy, when I'm coming towards you, what do? Don't, right? You go the other way. So for those who still have a negative perception of artificial intelligence, it impacts how you interact with these systems, and it actually puts you at a disadvantage. So question your own self and ask yourself. You don't have to answer to me right now, but ask yourself, what is your perception of artificial intelligence? And so we just look at the AI culture and skills and mindset to go into this. And the very first thing is for you, as a leader or as an everyday person, to anticipate changes that are happening in your industry. What are the changes that AI is bringing to your particular industry? I heard someone mention earlier about radio and Spotify, and I was like, yeah, that's a great point. Because the Spotify innovation should have come, rightfully so, from radio. But let's not get into that now. So, anticipate the changes that are happening within your industry. Keep an eye on how AI is transforming your particular industry. Because understanding the direction in which your field is headed will help you to adjust accordingly. If people are not anticipating industry changes and just focusing on what is happening right now, they are going to find themselves wanting in this age and time. Another key thing is for you to adapt to change. Be like the chameleon. I don't mean the chameleon. You know those people, you call them chameleons? Those people you can trust? That's not what I'm talking about. The chameleon that changes itself, its color, based on its environment. Is the environment becoming pink? You see the chameleon changes. Is it becoming blue? You see the chameleon changes. That is how you and I are supposed to operate in this age and time. Adapt to change. And Charles Darwin said, it's not the strongest species that survives, not the most intelligent. It is the one most adaptable to change. Are there any intelligent people in the room, by the way? Exactly. There is a time where your intelligence will not save you, and that time is now. So if all you are doing is relying on your intelligence, now, adaptability is more important than your intelligence in this age and time. There are businesses that used to survive on resources. But now, businesses that has the ability to adapt fast will move ahead of businesses that have all the resources, all the money, all the human capital, if they are not willing to evolve fast enough. The act of life is a constant readjustment to your surroundings. How many people are constantly adjusting to their surroundings? As a leader, as a business, is your business adjusting to the surroundings? These are critical questions to ask. Adaptability beats experience. There's so many people that are like, you know how long I've worked here? Do you know how long I have been in this industry? You just come in yesterday. What do you know? If you cannot adapt, your experience becomes a liability. Because experience is based on the past. And what works in the past, there's no guarantee it will work in the future. Or unless there's someone here with experience into 2030, 2035, then we can talk, right? But if your experience is based on 5 years, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you are living in a time where experience is no longer the defining thing when it comes to your profession. The most dangerous phrase in any organization, which is, this is how we've always done things. This phrase is always almost said by someone with experience, decades and decades of experience. So when you hear someone say that, this is how we've always done, no, this is how things are done, look at them like, huh? What did you just say? It's a terrible mindset to have. There's another business saying that don't fix it if it's not broken. Now, in this ancient time, fix it before it gets broken. Because the best time to fix the roof is when the sun is shining. Speaking of the sun shining, are there people from Pretoria here? Because the weather here, I'm thinking of relocating and then leave after winter. It's like you guys don't have winter, which is quite fun, you know? I digress. So, don't wait until it is broken before you fix it. If we look at Google today, many of what OpenAI is doing, Google could have done it. But they didn't want to do it because it would have disrupted their business model. They were like, why fix it if it's not broken? But someone else was cooking something that will force them to adopt the very thing that they were avoiding. Because their entire business model is based on search. If we create something new that takes people away from search, we disrupt our own business model, and we don't want to do that. And suddenly, they found themselves catching up with OpenAI. So don't wait for it to be broken. And don't be this guy. You need to confront complacency. I've worked here for 20 years, I've worked here for 10 years, I've worked here for 5 years. I've never made a mistake. Show me someone like this, and I'll show you someone who is not growing. Show me someone like this, I will show you someone who is not innovative, someone who does not have a forward-thinking mindset, because innovation requires a lot of mistakes. Innovation requires you break things and build as you go. Complacency is the silent killer of progress in any organization, and complacency ignores emerging trends. Complacency believes that past success will ensure future stability, and that's not true. That's why he can fold his legs and sit the way he is, like very comfortable, right? One of my favorite quotes is from Arvin Toffler. He said, "The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn." So, this means that illiteracy is being redefined. In the past, when you spoke of an illiterate, you're talking about someone who can't read, someone who never went to school, someone who cannot write. But the illiterate of the 21st century are different. The illiterate of the 21st century are those who are unable to unlearn. Learning is easy. Learning is very, very easy. The difficult part is in unlearning, especially what had worked in the past. Like, why should I unlearn this? It has always worked for us. Why should we change it now? If you have that type of mentality, and if you speak like that, you are considered the illiterate of the 21st century. And Henry Ford said, anyone who stops learning is outdated, whether at 20 or at 80. So it is important for an organization to build a learning culture. And if you look at the image of that kid, it is intentional why I put it, because if you're writing your strategies, if you're writing your 2030 plans, please write with a pencil. Don't use cement. Write with a pencil so that as the world changes, you can erase it and write what works in that time. Because we're dealing with systems that are self-improving in real time. So if you write your 5-year plan with cement and you're unable to adjust as you go, you are not going to be able to survive the times. So don't let your degree hold you hostage. There are those people, you know, I have a PhD. You know how many degrees I have? That's a hostage situation right there. So when someone talks to you and is bragging about their certifications, please hold them and say, please, should I call an emergency services? That's a hostage situation right there. They have allowed their degrees to hold them hostage. They've allowed their academic qualifications to hold them hostage. Some people stack these certifications like trophies, right? You know how many I got? But here's the thing. Holding on to your academic qualifications in this age and time makes you economically vulnerable. Because the reality is that the academia itself is struggling to keep up with the time. The education system itself is struggling to keep up with the time. And so if all you have now are the same certificate from a system that is kind of outdated, think about how that impacts you when it comes to being relevant. When disruption hits, when things are shaking in an organization, they're not going like, who has a degree? Who has a PhD? No, does it work like that? Maybe it does in your organization, I don't know. Is that how it works? No, it doesn't work like that. They were looking for a leader who is firm, a leader who is not being moved by the waves of change, a leader who understands disruption, and a leader who can turn that confusion into momentum, irrespective of your qualifications. I was in Nairobi, and it's something to do, I think, with UN or something, and they said, unless you have a particular degree, no matter how good you are in an organization, one of the employees was sharing with me, you cannot be promoted, no matter how good you are. So your promotion is based on, do you have this particular qualification? And I was like, that's insane. So there are still organizations that think like that. But in this age and time, a 6-month course could be more relevant than a 4-year degree. Think about it. If you go to upskill yourself now with a 4-year degree, it takes 4 years, 3 years maybe. By the time you complete that degree, the world would have moved on. Things are happening that fast. Everyone today is talking about ChatGPT as though we were born in the age of ChatGPT. This is an application that came into the market 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, and completely disrupted the marketplace. Some people that started degrees before ChatGPT are still studying that degree. Exactly. So when you are relying entirely on your academic qualification, one thing you need, I'm not going to go too deep into this, but one thing you need to keep in mind is that artificial intelligence is collapsing elite professions. Because knowledge that used to sit in ivory towers is now available online. It's codified. So do not rely entirely on what you learn in a classroom or what your degree can give you, because AI is disrupting the entire elite profession system. You think of your lawyers, your accountants, your tax advisors, all of these, there are softwares that can do any of these things better than an actual human being. So that is something to keep in mind. And I want us to listen quickly to, hope there will be audio to this.
This is a viral image of a rare concrete house that survived the fire in LA. So here in Europe, we were like, wait, Americans, the richest nation in the world, build their homes with cheap wood? But why? The reason is what economists call the path dependence feedback loop. Back in the 19th and 20th century, when the US was rapidly expanding, cheap wood was everywhere. So it became the default material for homes. And over time, the wood became a cultural symbol of the American family. So even though concrete is stronger and fireproof, the average American is like, yeah, but this is how I imagine a cozy family home, you know? And now it's hard to switch because the path dependence feedback loop works like this. Once a society adopts a specific way of doing things, like building wooden houses, craftsmen begin specializing in wooden construction. Manufacturers focus on producing materials for wooden homes, and the entire system aligns to support that choice. And a huge natural disaster like this can be a wake-up call. For example, the entire San Francisco burned to the ground in the Great Fire of 1906 because the city was made of wood. And that's when the city officials were like, okay, enough is enough. We are switching to concrete and steel. This is what's called the cultural inertia. When people keep doing things the old way, even if the times have changed and there is a much better option now. Now, think about your own country. What traditions do people still follow, even if they no longer make sense? Let us know in the comments.
Yes, think about your own organization. What tradition, culture are people still following without questioning? This video was made early this year when there was the Californian fire. I'm sure we heard about that, right? So there was a building that did not burn down, and the question had to be like, why? And that was a building made of concrete. Because the culture is that, I mean, when you really think about it, America, the richest country in the world, build their houses with wood. It doesn't make any sense at all. But that is what the culture has been passed down from generation to generation. What sort of culture are you going to leave for the next generation of leaders that are coming into your organization? What sort of mindset are you going to leave? Are you going to leave wood, or are you going to leave something concrete? Are you going to leave something that the fire can burn down, or something that can survive the fire of AI? And so cultural inertia, which you can also talk about it in relation to organizational inertia, is a reluctance to adapt to changing environmental conditions. He spoke about the path dependence feedback loop. Again, it's passing down things without questioning, even when the times have changed. And this is critical in today's age and time, to be able to question these things. What culture? Do you have an AI culture in your organizations? Many leaders today are like, our AI strategy, we need to bring AI into the business. Oh, we need to sprinkle some AI here. Okay, more AI, please, more AI. Please, can you put a pause, some source, AI? But without really thinking about the culture, the people. And culture, I wrote an article a few weeks ago on this. This is actually a masterclass, so I won't be able to go deep into this, but AI culture is the missing link, is the missing ingredient in many AI strategies today. Why? Because, okay, this is trying to give up on me. Companies are adopting all of these technologies, right? And pouring millions into these tools. But they're forgetting the one thing that makes it all work, and it's people. Statistics shows that up to 70% of digital transformation initiatives fail. And it's usually because they're jumping in tech first. And the culture is like, you guys sort yourself out. And the moment people see these tools being deployed, there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of fear. Or what does this mean for my career? What does this mean for my job? And no one is talking to employees. No one is talking to the culture to make sure that this adaptation mentally, this change brings down the anxiety for people. They don't think about that, but you cannot build a successful AI business on top of a fear-based and a rigid culture. If everyone is afraid, no one is going to want to be part of that. And it's easy to invest in technology than to invest in people, right? So organizations sometimes go for what's easy. Let's just buy the tools. How much money does it cost? $1 million? All right, cool, we'll raise the money. We'll find people who will fund that. But what about the people? So AI culture is not a tech initiative. It is a mindset initiative. It is a culture initiative. If the culture aligns with what the organization is trying to achieve, then there will be success. But if AI is on one hand and the people are on the other hand, this gap, if it's not closed, there cannot be success. For people who follow me on LinkedIn, if you can see on my LinkedIn title, I say bridging the gap between people and technology. And this gap somehow gets wider and wider when organizations are bringing in the tools on that side and the people is on the other side. Until the gap is closed, there will not be real success when it comes to digital transformation. It's important that you take it seriously. We all know Nokia, right? The story of Nokia, a familiar story. From grace to grass. In the days of Nokia, who could? This was Forbes magazine, 2007, the same year that the iPhone was launched. And they were on the cover of Forbes magazine. It said, 1 billion customers. Can anyone catch the cell phone king? What a dare. The same year, their competitor was born. They thought they were too big to fail, but no one is too big to fail in this age and time. Nokia had the market share, but they failed to innovate. And innovation isn't just about improving what works, but also about anticipating what's next, which is where they failed, to anticipate the changes that were happening in the industry. They thought an iPhone like, what? We have 1 billion customers. You're just coming in. We're not paying attention to you. They failed. They focused on perfecting what they had instead of really checking what was happening in the market. And again, it wasn't due to lack of resources. Nokia was wealthy, had all the resources in terms of people, in terms of money. Nokia had everything. But they lacked the vision. They lacked the ability to adapt. Like I said earlier, companies that can adapt will outrun companies with the resources. Nokia lost its leadership position because they had their head in the sand. So if there are any leaders listening to me with their head in the sand, it is time to take your head out the sand. And the same applies to Kodak and BlackBerry. Anybody remembers BlackBerry? Yeah, those phones in the day when you flip open like, I'm revealing my age, I know. Nokia 3310, anyone remembers? For the Gen Zs in the house, ask your neighbor, what is a Nokia 3310? These were brands 25 years ago, 20 years ago, that if you didn't have a Nokia 3310, if you didn't have a BlackBerry, I mean, the way you flip it, yeah, those were the days. But these brands thought that they were too big to fail. Kodak, the company that was leading in terms of cameras and all of that. But today, where are they? Like struggling to find market share. Certainty is a liability. Never get to that point where you feel so certain. When you cling too tightly to what you think you know, or to what has always worked, what happens is that you stop questioning, you stop learning, and you stop adapting. Certainty blinds you to new possibilities. It blocks innovation. And in today's world, agility, curiosity, and openness are much more important than rigid confidence. You don't want to have that level of confidence that is just too rigid, like, you know what, we have the market share, we can survive, don't worry. And one thing to do is look for innovation or innovation clues outside your company. If you really want to be innovative, you cannot just focus entirely on what is happening in your immediate industry. You cannot just focus entirely on what is happening within your profession, because someone outside your profession can kick you out of the market. Someone outside your industry can kick you out of the market. So pay attention to what else is happening out there that is completely outside of radio, outside of media. Pay attention to that. Because AI is blurring boundaries between industries. We know Apple. Apple is supposed to be the company that creates us iPhones and MacBooks and all of that. But today, Apple is also in the financial services. Samsung is a company for home appliances. But today, Samsung is also into fashion. They just take a pair of a jacket and they slap smart on it, smart jacket. Watch slap smart on it, smart watch. Shoes, smart shoes. That is the competition. In this ancient time, everyone is eating everyone's lunch. So if you're paying attention only to what is happening within the media industry, you could miss out on something that could come from outside and hit you without you paying attention. We knew Uber as ride-hailing services, but today, Uber is a delivery service as well. That is what is happening in the world today. You can find innovation outside your industry. We need to adopt a cross-disciplinary mindset. Silos are the arch-enemy of digital transformation. And one thing that digital transformation is supposed to do is to break down these silos so that different departments can talk to each other. And people within that organization can be able to understand what is happening, even at a basic level, between these different business units. But if everyone is on a stand-alone, 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 you cannot make progress in that sense. This doesn't mean that you need to know everything that is happening in marketing or in finance or in sales. No, just have the basic knowledge of what is happening in other business units. Because often the responsibilities of digital transformation are treated like a project, and this project is left in the hands of the IT team. Meanwhile, the other business units have no clue what is happening. Silos and digital transformation, these two cannot work hand in hand. You need to have a cross-disciplinary mindset and a cross-disciplinary approach to digital transformation. The mind is where the revolution begins. The mindset that worked in a pre-AI world will not work in our world today. Because we could talk here, different speakers can come up and talk, but if no change happens in the mind, there is no real change that can happen in an organization. So the big transformation that can actually happen is not just digital transformation, but a mindset transformation. It is a culture transformation. It is how you think, how you view AI, how you perceive the change that is happening in the world. So your mindset is critical to this transformation. And for this shift to fully happen, you need to kind of move away from the technology itself, like, okay, we're talking quantum computers now, or we're talking agentic AI now. We're talking all of these things. It can feel overwhelming when you're focusing entirely on the technologies. But if you shift your mindset to, oh, this is about a new era, this is about new ways of thinking, this is about new ways of leadership, new ways of learning, new ways of doing business, if you shift that mindset to about it being a new era, you find it easy to navigate and to adapt instead of looking at each technology on its own, because it can become very intimidating and very overwhelming when you start looking at the tech itself, but look at the impact of how the technology is changing the business world. And there are people that still have the mindset that I'm not a tech person. You try to have a conversation with someone around these things, they're like, you know what, no, I'm not in IT, sorry. Sorry, Nikki, I'm not in IT, that's not for me. So if you still think like that, you are not going to be able to survive the times. I tell people, if you have a smartphone, you are in tech. Anyone with a smartphone in the house? We are all in tech, right? Saying I'm not a tech person is like saying I'm not a learning person. We are all learning. Is there anyone here that when you were born, the doctors looked at you and be like, she looks like a tech person? And they slapped that label on you? Is there anyone in the room like that? No. Is there anyone in the room that the day you were born, they're like, you look like you belong in media? We all learn. We are all learning. So if you could learn how to be in media, you could learn how to be in finance, you could learn how to be in marketing, sales, whatever, you can learn how to be in tech. Everyone has to learn, and understanding technology or AI is not about coding complex algorithm or building robots or any of these things. It is about understanding the basic of how it impacts you at a very basic level. How does it impact your profession? These were the days as well. Who remembers these? The disk. Legacy systems, legacy mindset, where innovation goes to die. If an organization is still relying on legacy systems, I hope no one here has these, by the way. But if an organization is still relying on the legacy system, because legacy system goes hand in hand with legacy thinking, right? Still measuring productivity in hours worked. How many hours did you work today? 8 hours? Okay, great, good job. How many hours did you work today? 5? No. Even if you had accomplished what you did in those 5 hours. Because the tools that these new systems are giving us can help us accomplish more in less time. So if an organization still measures productivity based on hours worked, you are operating in the legacy system. You're still expecting people to climb linear career ladders, you know. Were you a manager? How many years of experience do you have? And all of that, even though this person is qualified to do what you want them to do, but you're looking at how did you travel to get here? The world is changing. You're still making decisions based on top-down hierarchies. Still building with wood when the world is on fire. We just spoke about a Californian fire and the house is being built with wood. You cannot afford to build systems with wood when AI is setting everything on fire. Because AI doesn't play by these rules. AI evolves in real time. It learns, it adapts, it adjusts. And so if your mindset and system cannot catch up with the times, you are going to be left behind. There's another mindset, the wheelbarrow mindset. We know what a wheelbarrow is, right? If you push a wheelbarrow and leave it here, you come back tomorrow, you find it exactly where you left it. There are people like that. I hope you don't have any wheelbarrows in your team. There are people that you push them, you leave them here, you come back, you push them again, you leave them here. People need to be able to carry their own weight. I talk a lot about closing the gap between people and technology, but many people are waiting for this gap to be closed for them. They're waiting for the government to close for them this gap. They're waiting for their boss to close for them this gap. They're waiting for their organization to close for them this gap. But you need to take responsibility and initiative for your own digital well-being. Do you want to stay relevant? Don't wait on anybody to come and push you. Many of them are sitting in that wheelbarrow with all the qualifications, right? Their PhD, their master's degree, they're not moving forward. But AI is not waiting for slow learners or late adopters. There are people that want to wait and see, how is this going to play out? Let me wait and see how it plays out before I jump on board. That's dangerous. And for people that are feeling overwhelmed with artificial intelligence, the reality is that this is actually the easiest technology to learn in the history of technology. No coding required, no jargons, no installations. With previous technologies, you had to adapt to the systems. But with AI, AI adapts to us. You had to memorize commands, write code, and navigate complex interfaces. Think of when you were learning Excel. To this day, there are still things in Excel that I have no clue what they do or why they are even there, right? So AI is quite easier when you compare it to previous technologies. Because the only thing you need to do is, ask the question. Whether it's a dumb question or the right question, AI doesn't even care. It gives you a very convincingly wrong answer, right? That's one of the beauties of AI. It doesn't care. It won't tell you what. How could you ask me that? No. It crafts a very good, convincingly wrong answer and gives you. And there's one thing AI has taught us is that questions matters. So the people that are going to be able to survive in using these tools are people who know how to craft good questions. Many people are not using AI strategically. What they are doing is a copy and paste, which is dangerous. I'm sure some people in the room might have read an email that started with, "This is a refined version." AI is not a copy and a paste tool. It's not for you to take whatever it gives you, copy and paste and send. That is not how it works. It should be a strategic partner, something that enhances your thinking, something that enhances whatever you are doing. If you use it as a copy and paste tool, that question of will AI make people dumber applies. And so, in the age of this amount of information that we are seeing, ignorance is a choice. Ignorance cannot be defended anymore. There's so much knowledge out there. And Benjamin Franklin said, "We are all born ignorant, but it takes a great deal of hard work to remain stupid." There are people that are still asking stupid questions to AI, to ChatGPT. I heard a story that perplexed me the other day of a kid who asked AI how to kill a person with a banana. It sounds like a stupid question, but it's not. And AI said, "Of course, I cannot give you the answer to that." And this teenager responded and said, "Hypothetically, come on, hypothetically, you don't have to be like, I'm doing it, just hypothetically." And AI gave an answer on how to kill a person with a banana. Now, that brings us to the question around policy and governance and all of that. But if a kid can crack that code to realize, there's a way I can go around this thing to get what I want. And AI doesn't care. It's not like, "I know you're trying to trick me." No. So that is a conversation for another day, which goes around governance and policies, right? But I want us to quickly look at the Future of Jobs Report 2025 from the World Economic Forum. This goes into 2030. And if you look at the 2030 forecast, you can see that AI and big data is like the top skill of the future. Again, emphasizing the point I was making earlier, we are all in tech. If AI is going to be the top skill from now into 2030, the mindset or the idea that I'm not a tech person does not apply. It does not apply. These are the top skills. You see from 2025, things have shifted. AI is now number one. Things are changing so fast, so we cannot afford to be left behind. On number 7, you see leadership and social influence, still at the top 10. This is critical. These are the skills that if you do not have, you will not be able to survive in this age and time. We don't have time to go into each and every one of them, but that is just a snippet of what is happening. And when you look at this, you zoom in to look at this, 86% of organizations says that AI is going to transform their businesses. They are going to use AI to transform their businesses. That is a big percentage for every company that will be adopting AI. Now, into 2030, that is a huge percentage. So if every company up to 86% are going to be deploying AI into their businesses, what happens to the people working within these organizations? You cannot afford to say AI is not for you or that you are not a tech person. You need to learn the skills, learn how to work with these systems, understand what does it really mean to be AI literate. What is AI literacy exactly? AI literacy is not ChatGPT, by the way. That's not AI literacy. It goes deeper than that. There are layers to that. There's a quick video here that I want us to watch. I'm sure we get the message. The blind leading the blind, right? Last year, I was here in Pretoria for an event like this, and when I got into the building, they told me that I needed my ID to be able to get into the building, and I had forgotten my ID. It was like, I'm trying to negotiate with the reception, at the reception. I'm telling them, look, I forgot it at home, please. Like, I have a digital copy on my phone. Can I just get in? She's like, no, Nikki, sorry. What? I have a digital copy. Like, no. They need a physical copy of the ID for me to get into the building. Like, okay. And behind them at the reception said, building something, something through innovation, all right? So the word innovation caught my attention, and I'm starting a conversation with her. I'm like, I just see innovation behind you. She started laughing, and she said, Nikki, I know where you're about to go with this. But listen, orders come from the top. The order from the top is that no one gets into the building without a physical copy of the ID. Even though a digital copy is more efficient, even though it's still me, but the boss says, you can't get into the building. So people have a tagline that they don't even understand, and it ends up being this type of a situation where the blind, is leading the blind. So leaders play a crucial role in setting the tone for digital transformation. It's important to have the tools, but it's even more important to know how to use those tools. So leadership from the traditional perspective is dead, is gone. In the past, vision and charisma and decades of industry experience could make you a good leader. But in this age and time, no. Every CEO is now a tech CEO because we are in a tech-first world. There's no such thing like, oh, this is a non-tech industry. No, we don't really have any relationship with technology. No, goodbye. No, it doesn't work like that. Modern CEOs must move beyond delegating tech conversations only to the IT department, which is the thing I say all the time. When we're having these conversations, don't zoom out and say, oh, I'm not in IT, so this is not for me. The time to learn is now. As a leader, it's not enough to support innovation. You need to embody it. And so digital transformation starts with people, not technology. A successful digital enterprise is not a technological enterprise, but a confederation of inspired people that are empowered by technology. When leadership understands this, then they'll be able to deploy tools that actually work, because companies don't disrupt. It's people who do. Innovation and disruption, it is people who make that happen. And Whitney Johnson said it better. She said, businesses require disruptive people to be disruptive. A business consists of holdings and office buildings and warehouses, desks, chairs, sophisticated machineries, and all these things. Electronics, they are like shields, inanimate, creating nothing, like a beehive minus the bees. It's pretty difficult to get honey that way. People are required to breathe life into an organization to achieve innovation, growth, and productivity. And that is so true. It is people that drive this change. So you cannot afford to leave them behind. Human capital is critical. Transformation isn't just a technology initiative. It's about people and culture. Because technology without humanity is incomplete. When you're investing in digital transformation, also ask yourself, are you investing in your people? And many people, when they hear of artificial intelligence, they think only of the Terminator model of AI. How many people have watched the Terminator movie in the house? Right, that's what many people know of AI. The Terminator model, the view is that AI is dangerous, it's uncontrollable, and it will replace all human beings. Job loss, that's the focus. Surveillance systems, deepfakes, autonomous weapons, what Israel is doing, but let's not go there. Existential risk, this is it. The narrative is that machines over-empowering humans or taking over humans, and the emotion this narrative triggers is that of fear, that of resistance, and that of distrust. That is the Terminator model of AI. Rightfully so. This still applies to AI. But there is another model of AI, which is the Iron Man model. How many of you watched the Iron Man movie as well? Somehow Hollywood has been telling us the story of the future, in plain sight. We didn't realize it up until now, what was really happening. So the Iron Man model the focus is that AI is a powerful assistant, it's a powerful tool to augment your capabilities. The focus is on productivity, creativity, problem solving, and smarter decision making. The narrative is that AI is an assistant, it's a co-pilot. The human is still in control. And the emotion this triggers is that of curiosity and empowerment and collaboration. So there are two models to artificial intelligence, but many people are too focused on the Terminator model, forgetting that the Iron Man model can actually enhance them. The Iron Man model speaks to the suit that Tony Stark will put on when he wanted to do bigger things. The suit doesn't replace Tony Stark. It enhances him. It makes him 10 times more better, more faster. Yes, in the movie, it depicts Tony Stark as a genius, but this genius is limited from a human capability perspective. You might be a genius in the house, you might understand so many things, but if you can combine that with artificial intelligence, you become unstoppable. So it is time to stop fearing artificial intelligence and have the ability to put on the suit, to come on and say, oh, let's do this, let's collaborate, let's partner together. Become part of the revolution. You cannot stop AI, you cannot stop technological progress, but what you can do is to make sure that you impact or change how it influences your life and how it influences your profession and how it influences your career. So put on the Iron Man suit and focus more on the opportunity. And so the most intelligent response to intelligent disruption is for you to evolve, improve, disrupt, rise. Because if you sit back and do nothing, you are more likely to be replaced by another human who is leveraging AI and performing better than you are to be replaced by software. Many people are too focused on being replaced by AI, but your real competitor is your colleague who is learning how to use this system. That's your real competitor. And so with that being said, what is it going to be? Are you going to take action and empower yourself as a leader and as a business? Or you're going to bury your head in the sand? And remember, Nokia was kicked out of the market because they had their head in the sand. And with that being said, thank you for having me.